Hi everyone, it's Keely. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my long-awaited iPad Pro Procreate tutorial, basically. I've gotten a lot of questions on this channel and on my Instagram page how I use my iPad Pro with Procreate. I get a lot of questions about certain tools that I use and how to do certain things that I show on film. So I'm just going to do like a quick run through about some of the things that I use most often in Procreate and also some of the techniques that I use, as well as my most used brushes and all that sort of fun stuff. So hopefully you guys find this useful. So to start with, I'm just going to open up my Procreate here. Here at the top you can see that we have 4 buttons. We have select, import, photo, and a little plus sign here. Below this you have all of your open canvases. I have just like tons of stuff on here. So you can click select to select canvases, import to import a photo, a file, a Procreate file, that sort of thing. You can click photo, or you can click this little plus button here. And this button opens up your new canvas tab. Here we have all of my pre-made canvas sizes. You can see the name that I named the canvas and also the pixel size. So the one that I use most often, which I get asked this a lot, so my most commonly used photo file size is my 8.5 by 11 print. So that's 2,550 pixels by 3,300 pixels. I have all sorts of stuff here, like files optimized for my 13 by 19 prints, my YouTube banner template, my thumbnail template, 4 by 6 photos, thumbnails, square photos, all that fun stuff. So down here at the bottom there's a little tab that says create custom size. You can tap that, and then up pops a little template to make a new preset file size. So you can select the pixel width and height, the DPI, the color, and then you can name it down here at the bottom. So I choose to usually name mine by the intended use for it so that I have an easy time of finding it later. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up a new file here by tapping my 8.5 by 11, and then you can see it immediately sucks us into a new canvas. So there we go. I'm going to be using my Apple Pencil as always. So we're going to start up here at the top. You can see that we have a little bar over here for some adjustments, and then most of our tools are up here on the top bar. So up here in this corner we have our color wheel. Tap that and you can, make all sorts of adjustments to what kind of colors you want to use. Next to the little disc selection down here is the classic. This is the color selector that appears in, I would say, the majority of art programs. We have a value tab where you can adjust all of the values and whatnot via slider bar, and then we have the palettes tab where you can make your own custom palette that will just, be available for you to use at any time. So right next to that we have the layers level. So you can see you have the background layer here, which you can disappear and reappear by clicking this little checkmark box here, and that's the same with all layers. Just click the little checkmark box and it'll disappear and reappear. You'll make it transparent. It automatically starts you with 1 layer, but if you want to add more layers, you can click this little plus button up here in the upper right hand corner of the layers tab, and that'll just add a new layer. They're usually just named by layer 1, layer 2, and so forth, but you can go in and rename the layers. If you slide to the right, you have 3 options here, which is lock, duplicate, and delete. I'm gonna just delete that one, but you can also tap it, and this little bar here will pop up on the side with more options. So you can click rename to rename the layer, select, copy, fill layer, clear, alpha lock, mask, and reference. I use alpha lock quite a lot, and that's how I recolor my layers with tool brushes instead of using the recolor tool, which I'll talk about more later. So if I were to draw this circle, and just another tip here, for the purposes of filling in, you just need to tap the color bubble up here, tap and drag and then you can drop it into your enclosed area and it will fill it for you. So now that I have that done, if I want to alpha lock, instead of tapping it and clicking the alpha lock button, what you can do is you can take 2 fingers and you can slide to the right and it'll activate alpha lock for you. So this means that I won't be able to add additional color and whatnot outside of this shape, but I will be able to color within this shape, if that makes sense. It makes it so the only part of this layer that I can adjust in any way is what was previously put here before I activated the alpha lock. So yeah, there's that. People ask how I duplicate layers. Just slide to the left, click the duplicate button, and then I have 2 identical layers. For the purposes of merging layers, you can click the layer above and click merge down. Those 2 individual layers are now one cohesive layer. So yeah, that's how I do that. Right next to that we have the eraser tool, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. It's an eraser. You can select all sorts of tools to erase with, so here, let's make another little test circle here. So for example, I can erase with the sketching tool, I can erase with the round brush, I can erase with a charcoal brush, I can erase, with a blotchy brush. As you can see, you can select any of the brushes you have downloaded to also be your eraser tool. And then right next to the eraser tool is the smudge, which again is the same as the eraser tool, just completely different action. So I can select any of my brushes to use to smudge. So that's the round brush here in the painting tab. I can smudge with the technical pencil, I can smudge with anything that I have downloaded. So yeah, that's more or less the smudge tool there. And now we have the brush tool. You can see that you have multiple tabs here on the side and then multiple selections within the tab. So here is the sketching tab where all of my sketch texture brushes are. I have technical pencil, all of that fun stuff. My inking brushes, calligraphy, painting, artistic, and so forth. Some of these tabs I did download in Procreate. You can download brushes that are made by other people to use in the program. I'm not going to show you guys how to do that today because I did it a really long time ago and I honestly don't remember off the top of my head, but it is possible. You can go to Procreate forums and whatnot. People like to share the brushes that they've made and you can download and use those. So that's what some of these are. They didn't all come with the program, but they're all free, so you can basically get any brush you can find on the internet. So yeah, you can also then tap, the tool you'd like to select, and then if you tap it again, it opens up the options. So here there are all sorts of adjustments you can make to these brushes. I'm not going to go into in-depth what they all do, but you can adjust the tools to better suit your liking. That's what I've done with most of the ones that I use on a regular basis. They've all been adjusted to some degree. You can, again, slide to the left with these. You can share, duplicate, or reset. You can only reset after you've made changes, obviously, but you can duplicate it, share, whatnot. What I like to do if I'm going to edit something is to duplicate it and then edit the duplicated version so I still have the original version on here, which is why I have multiple technical pencils and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much the brushes tool for you. Okay, now if we continue moving left, we have this little cursor button here. You click that and it will immediately highlight whatever is on your layer with this moving dotted box. You can see it has blue dotted points around the perimeter so that you can make adjustments. If you tap and slide, well, I guess hold and slide, you can adjust the height and width of your layer, but if you tap and hold, you can distort and stretch your layer. And then as soon as you let it go, it moves as one again. So there's that. Down here at the bottom, while you have this highlighted, you have multiple choices. You can flip vertically, horizontally, vertically. And then you can flip the other direction. You have this tool here, which will rotate by 45 degrees every time you tap it. This button here will stretch your highlighted area to fit the canvas. You have an undo and a redo button and all that. So when you're done adjusting in this area, you just tap the little cursor again and your layer is now no longer highlighted. So yeah, next to that we have the little lasso tool here. This tool you can use to draw around certain portions of your layer that you'd like to adjust. You meet the line back up with the beginning, tap this dot here, and then this area has now become selected. You go just to the right and click the cursor tool again, and now you can move that selected area. As soon as you tap this cursor tool, it is now one whole layer again, as you selected it. So, yeah, that's that tool, more or less. And then here, to the left of that, we have the Adjustments tab. Here you can click things like opacity. Just slide this blue bar up at the top, down and up to adjust the opacity of your entire layer. You can select all sorts of blur tools here. Things like motion blur, perspective blur, and whatnot that you can mess with. You have this button down here that says hue, saturation, and brightness. Click that, and you can make all sorts of adjustments. Then below that you have color balance, which again is a slider bar for balancing your color. This you can adjust the color in the highlight section, midtone section, and shadow section so that you can adjust it without losing the values of your artwork. So beneath that you have the curves button, which honestly I don't really mess with, and then the recolor tool. This tool I get asked about a lot. So what you do is you tap the recolor tool, and then this little crosshairs pops up. Drag the crosshair over what you'd like to recolor, go up here to your color wheel, and select a new color. This is always how I change, well not always, but majority of the time, how I change the color on my artwork is by using the recolor tool, dropping the crosshairs over what I want to recolor, and then adjusting up here in the color wheel. This is why I work in a lot of layers, because this tool will recolor the entire layer. It will at the very least adjust the colors, if not identically match the color that you select here. So this is why I work in a lot of layers, so that if later I want to change the color, I don't have to go through the hassle of, like, you know, selecting and cutting and cropping and all of that stuff. I can just choose the whole layer and then recolor, because it tends to make my life a lot easier. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the adjustments area. Over here we have the actions, and underneath the actions we have multiple tabs to go through. So there's the image tab where you can insert a file, insert a photo, take a photo, cut, copy canvas, and paste. All of those are pretty self-explanatory. I like to use the insert a photo tool to add my reference photo down here in the corner while I'm working sometimes. You can cut a layer, copy the layer, all of that stuff, and then once you have it either cut or copied, you can open a new layer, select the paste, and then paste that layer into a new layer, if that makes sense. Right next to that you have the canvas, where they have information like flip canvas horizontally, flip canvas vertically, and your canvas information and whatnot. You have the share button. Tap this to share your file. You can share it as a Procreate file, a PSD, a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG, and a TIFF. So there's that. The video tool here is where you go to find your time-lapse replay, your time-lapse recording options, live broadcasting, all that fun stuff. Next to that you have your preferences tab. Here is where you can go to select your light or dark interface, whatever you prefer. I worked with the dark interface for a long time, but I've been recently trying out the light interface to see how I like that. But yeah, there's all sorts of things you can adjust in here, such as your advanced gesture controls, which you may need to adjust eventually, so it's good to know that they're down here at the bottom. But yeah, all of that's, you know, personal preference. And then finally you have the little eye up here. It's just for information on the app as a whole. You can leave a review, you can contact customer support, all of that fun stuff that you may eventually need to learn about. Over here we have our brush size and brush opacity layers. I pretty much always keep my opacity at 100%, but I do adjust the size quite a bit. And the size does stay the same when you exit out of that brush, so when you return to it, it will be the same size that you had selected previously. And you can adjust the size and opacity of the brush in the brush tool, the smudge tool, and the eraser tool. So all of that is completely adjustable. And then up here you have your gallery button. Tap that to return to your gallery, and then you can just, select your artwork again to reopen that. So yeah, that's basically the rundown of, in my personal opinion, the most important parts of Procreate. These are just the tools that I personally use most often. I'm not saying that they're the most important. I'm sure that everyone uses Procreate in a completely different way, as with anything. So these are just the tools that I personally find most vital to my process. So yeah, I thought I would share that with you. So now I'm just going to share a couple of my tips and tricks and my favorite brushes. Technical pencil. As you can see here, it has quite the, pencil on paper sort of texture. I use this mostly for my sketching, but I do also use it for outlining for a more soft look, if that makes sense. My next most used pen here would be the technical pen. I use this when I want really crisp lines. Okay, my next pen would be the stipple brush. This is in the inking tab, and I use it mostly for freckles and stars and that sort of thing. Okay, next is the round brush. I use this one the most for when I want to go for a more painterly sort of style with lots of soft edges, easy to blend sort of details and that sort of thing. Next is the imported circle brush. Again, this I got off of a website. This does not come with Procreate. That was the one thing that I kind of felt like I really needed, that this program didn't offer, was a really crisp circular tool. So I went and downloaded one, and I use it pretty frequently, I would say. And finally we have the soft airbrush. I use this mostly for gradients, but I use it pretty much every time I open the program. Okay, and now I'm just going to show you guys how I do my really soft gradients and how I recolor things. Both of those were things I get asked about a lot, so I figured I would just kind of tack them onto the end of this video. So we'll just fill up a circle here, and again we're going to go back to the 2 fingers slide to activate the alpha lock, and then select a new color, go down to my airbrush tool, and then I just gently ombre it up, and that is how I do my really soft gradients in a contained space. So hopefully that was helpful. I would really suggest getting to know and utilizing your airbrush tool, because it gives the most beautiful effects in the world. Okay, and finally I want to just show you guys how I use my recolor tool. But first I want to say all of these dots you see here are on the same layer, and this is why you do not keep everything on the same layer if you intend to use the recolor tool. Because if you select the recolor tool on this layer, you can see I have this color of yellow highlighted up here in my little circle. If I drag this crosshair over the other colors, you can see it completely just changes every color by trying to recolor one of these. So don't do that. If you want to use the recolor tool, keep it in one layer, click the recolor here, and now you can recolor to your heart's delight. If you do have an entire layer of colors and you still want to recolor something, I would suggest using the alpha lock. So what you can do here is activate the alpha lock, and then instead of using the recolor tool, you can just go in with a pen and recolor by hand, so that everything else can stay the same color, if that makes sense. So yeah, that was just a little peek at the way that I like to use Procreate. If you guys have any other questions or anything else you'd like to see, please let me know. Leave it in the comments down below and I will do my best to get back to you. If there are enough questions, I will consider doing a second video like this if you guys enjoy it and, find it useful and everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye!